have so many books. I don't even know where to put them all. I'll have to like insert a video of how many books are stacked around me right now. I wanted to do this video a while ago, like at the beginning of the year, but I thought it would be cool or fun to show you guys the 25 books that I hope to finish this year. Here's a few things before we get started. First of all, some of these books are new releases for 2025, and some are just books that have been on my TBR for a while that I really want to get to. Some of these books that are a part of this list are the last book in a series that I'm currently in the middle of, and so the books that I have not read are also included. So it's going to be more than 25 books by the end of this. So without further ado, let's just dive into the 25 books that I would like to read in 2025. Number 1, we have Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I hope the reflection isn't too bad on this, but look how pretty this book is. I am in love. This is a January 2025 release, so by the time this video is out, it has already been released, obviously, because I have my hands on a copy of this book. This is the third book in the Empyrean series. The first book is Fourth Wing, which follows Violet as she enters the War College, and she goes into the War College as a dragon rider, which kind of is a little unfortunate for her because she has spent her whole life training to be a scribe, which is kind of like a librarian, but her mom is like the general of like the war general, I guess, and kind of like the dean of the college, and her mom forces her to be a dragon rider. So Fourth Wing, the first book, follows her trying to survive her first year in this war college. And yeah, so this is the third book. I am so excited. I'm not sure what I rated the first 2 books. I think like a 4.5 and a 4-star. The second book left off on a cliffhanger, and I just need to know what happens next. So I am so excited to get to this book. The next book I have on this list is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This will be released in April of this year. I'm gonna do my best to try to summarize what the plot of this book is about. Basically, Alice and Hayden are the 2 main characters, and they are competing for a chance to write a book about this woman named Margaret Ives, who is an heiress that hasn't been seen or heard from in years. Yeah, I guess that's what the book is about. They're competing to write this book, this biography, and I would assume a romance picks up. It's an Emily Henry book. I read Emily Henry for the first time last year. Absolutely loved her books. Happy Place is a 6-star read for me. So I'm super, super excited for this book to come out and to read it this summer. And this cover is gorgeous. I love like the mosaic background of the cover. I think it's a beautiful cover. Next up, I have Sounds Like Love by Ashley Poston. This is a June release. This follows Joni, who's a songwriter who's kind of going through writer's block, but she moves back home to help out with something, like back to her hometown. And when she gets there, she starts hearing a melody in her head sung by a man like she's never met, but she keeps hearing it in her head. And then that man shows up in her hometown and she recognizes his voice, and they find out that he has the same melody stuck in his head, so they work together to finish the song. And yeah, that's what that book's about. I don't know, I'm so excited. I also read Ashley Poston for the first time last year. Loved her books. A novel love story, I know that didn't get the best reception when it got released last year, but that book, oh my goodness, that like altered my brain chemistry, I'm not gonna lie. I loved it. I don't know, I just love the magical realism aspect of being inside the world of your favorite book series. All this to say, I think Ashley Poston does such a great job incorporating magic into her plots. And so I'm so excited to see this one and how this one plays out. Next up, this is one of those ones where it's the last book in the series, Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. So this, oh my goodness, this is where I'm at. I have 4 books left in the series: Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, Tower of Dawn, and Kingdom of Ash. I started this series last year as well. I have been making a like spoiler reading vlog series about each of these, well, about this whole series, one for each book. And so I hope to finish not only that video series, but the series itself this year. These are some massive books though. However, Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn, I will be tandem reading, so we'll see how it goes. I'm super excited to read the series. I've heard nothing but great things and I've really enjoyed it so far. These books are just so big. Oh my goodness. Next up, we have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. This will be released in March of this year. It is another prequel to the Hunger Games trilogy, which, if you haven't read that trilogy, it is a young adult, is it fantasy or sci-fi? Dystopian. A young adult dystopian that follows Katniss Everdeen, and she is basically forced to compete in a bloody fight to the death with 23 other teenagers in a competition that's hosted by their government called the Hunger Games. It is an amazing trilogy. I highly recommend it. I read it for the first time, I think 4th or 5th grade. It's a funny story, actually. My dad got me the first book as like a gift right before he went into a major surgery. Like, he got each of us kids a gift and he got me that book. And I read it that day and I loved it. I think the Hunger Games really pushed me into being a reader. Yeah, so I love that original trilogy. It is a 5-star trilogy. The movies even are amazing. If you don't even want to read the books, I get it. Watch the movies. They are so good. They are so well done. They stick pretty close to the original books, which I love. Last year, I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I gave it a 5 stars. I don't know if it should have had a 5 stars. That book follows President Snow and his background story. I think it was the nostalgia that pushed it to a 5 stars, honestly. This one in specific, Sunrise on the Reaping, follows Haymitch, who is basically Katniss's mentor during the original trilogy. And this is supposed to follow his experience in the Hunger Games. I'm gonna put it out there right now. I genuinely hope that his Hunger Games, like, that's not the main part of the story. I would really love to see what happens after his Hunger Games and him having to stick around in the Capitol and training all these kids for future Hunger Games. That is what would interest me the most, I think, personally, rather than seeing another Hunger Games. That's my disclaimer for that book, but I am really excited to pick that one up and read it, and I'm sure it's gonna get a movie adaptation. Okay, next up is another one of those books that's the last one in the series. Michael Vey, The Colony by Richard Paul Evans. That is the 10th and final book in the Michael Vey series. I have it 5 through 9 right here. I've already read up to the 4th book. These books follow Michael, who is a teenager with electric powers, and in the first book, he discovers he's not the only teenager to have these powers, but not only that, he's also running from an evil group of other electric children who are trying to kind of recruit him into their group, but he doesn't want to join because Michael has morals. But yeah, it's a very fun young adult sci-fi series. I really am liking the cast of characters we're building up. There's only been 1 or 2 characters where I'm like, really? I don't think they were necessary. But yeah, it's just really a easy, quick read. As you can see, they're pretty short. You can get through them pretty quickly. Also, another thing I really love about this series, the chapters are so short. For me, short chapters are so easy to read because I feel so accomplished when I'm finishing a chapter that it makes me almost want to read faster, you know? I don't know if that makes sense to you, but it just makes me feel good about myself every time I finish a chapter and I'm like, oh dang, like I'm getting so far in the book, you know? Next, we have the last book in the series that I'm actually almost caught up on. Well, that I am caught up to that point. Finale by Stephanie Garber. This is the 3rd and last book in the Caraval trilogy. This trilogy follows 2 sisters, Scarlet and Donatella, as they play in Caraval, which is a game famously known for its magical tricks and the coveted prize, which is 1 wish to be granted to the winner. So the first book follows Scarlet's experience in the Caraval games, and then the second book follows Donatella's. I am excited for this 3rd book. I've been meaning to get to it forever. This was on my fall TBR. It's been on multiple monthly TBRs. It needs to get read. Next, I have Hopeless by Elsie Silver, which I actually need to read Reckless and then Hopeless. These are the 4th and 5th books in the Chestnut Spring series. This is a cowboy romance, interconnected standalone series that follows the Eaton brothers and their family and friends as they find love out on a ranch in Alberta, Canada. I wasn't expecting to like the first book, Flawless. I wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did, but I'm so glad I started that series because I absolutely have been loving Elsie Silver's writing. I actually started her other series, Gold Rush Ranch, as well. I really am excited to finish this series. Next, I have the classic Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This has also been on multiple TBRs. I love the movie. I think it's like the 2005 movie. Love that movie. So I want to read this. I want to read the book. I want to see if I love the book as much. I haven't read a classic in years. I haven't read a classic since 2020, 2019, a long time. So let's just say 5 years. I'm scared, okay? I'm scared that I'm not gonna like the style of writing. Next, I have Bad Blood by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. That is the 4th book in the Natural series. I read the 1st book, so I still need to finish Killer Instinct, All In, and Bad Blood to finish the series. But this series follows a group of highly intelligent teenagers who become like behavioral profilers for the FBI. The best description I heard of this series, which I think is accurate, is this is a young adult version of Criminal Minds. And I grew up watching that show. My mom loves that show. I really enjoy it up to a certain point. And then they have that whole Spencer Reid plotline that freaked me out. But I read the 1st book, loved it. The vibes were amazing. The banter between the characters, because they're all supposed to be like super intelligent and witty, and it was so fun. I definitely think Jennifer Lynn Barnes has a writing style that is very, like, as a mystery thriller type of story, she really gives you the chance to figure out some of the mysteries yourself, but still has a plot twist at the end that will have your jaw on the floor. All right, up next, I have Rewind It Back by Liz Tomford. That's the 5th and final book in the Windy City series. I still have to finish the book before that, which is Play Along. This series is basically a set of interconnected standalone sports romances that range from hockey to basketball to baseball, and they're all set in Chicago. I'm in love with this series. Mile High, the 1st book, had a lot of negative things, like a lot of negative reviews because there was a little bit of body shaming. But I think personally, I thought that was the whole point, was like the only people body shaming her were characters that you weren't supposed to like. I don't know, maybe I just skipped over something that other people read because I genuinely really liked it. The 2nd book, a lot of people really loved, called The Right Move, and that one is also really good. So the whole series I've been really enjoying so far, and I'm excited to read the last 2 books. I think they're gonna be so fun. Her romances, they're all very fun, but each one still has an emotional depth to it that I really enjoy. Next, we have The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. I heard about this author because Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow completely blew up. Like, everybody was reading that book, everyone was loving it. And then Haley Pham read this book and she really loved it, and so this started to blow up. And I bought it and I just didn't pick it up. But this book is about A.J. Fikry, who has lost his wife, is about to lose his bookstore, and has had his most prized possession stolen. But his whole life is about to change after he receives a mysterious package on his doorstep. I am really excited to read it. It's a short book. It also, if you didn't know, has a movie adaptation. I didn't know that. I was Googling this book and the movie adaptation popped up and I was like, what are you doing here? I really hope I get to this year, honestly, because I've heard nothing but great things about this book and this author's writing. Water break, because oh my goodness, my throat. Next, we have The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. This is the 2nd book in the Robert Langdon series. I didn't know it was part of a series, okay? Well, yeah, this has been adapted into a movie. I watched the movie, really enjoyed it. I think it's just like a little mystery type movie that was interesting to me at the time. And so I received this book and I found out it was part of the series, and now I'm conflicted on whether or not to read the 1st book in the series before I read this one. I also happen to have the next, I think, 2 or 3 books in that series. I don't know yet. I need to decide what I'm going to do about that. But this book in specific follows Robert, the title character of the series, who is a symbologist. He like can decode ciphers and whatnot, but he is called to the Louvre after a puzzling cipher is left at a murder scene. Tom Hanks plays the main character Robert, and Oh, I mean, it was a fun movie, so I'm hoping the book is just as much fun. Next on the list, I have Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is the second book in the Red Rising saga. The series follows Darrow, who is a Red, which is a member of the lowest class in that society, and he basically is fighting against his government's oppression by becoming the enemy. That might be revealing too much. Okay, this book, the first book, Red Rising, crazy. It was like kind of my first experience reading adult science fiction. I really enjoyed it. I'm actually making my boyfriend read it right now, and I hope he is enjoying it. I think he's enjoying it. It's just a really well-built world. So the second book is on my TBR. Next, I have Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. I also don't have this book. It is on Kindle Unlimited right now. It is the first book in the Crimson Moth duology, which is set in a world where witches are being hunted, and the main character is Rune, who is a witch, but she kind of hides in plain sight as a socialite. During the night, she is the vigilante, the Crimson Moth, who helps smuggle other witches out of the country to kind of protect them. And then the other main character is Gideon, who is a witch hunter, but he is more specifically trying to hunt down the Crimson Moth. And he learns that Rune may have a connection to the Crimson Moth, and so he inserts himself into her life and they start courting. I have heard so many great things about it. Everyone has been talking about it, at least from like my social media standpoint. Like my algorithm has brought me a whole bunch of good reviews about the book. Next we have Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. This is the second book in the Magnolia Parks universe. The first book follows the toxic relationship between London socialites Magnolia Parks and BJ Ballantyne. And then this book follows the toxic relationship between Daisy and Christian, which Christian is the best friend of BJ, and then Christian also happens to be in love with Magnolia. I think he dates Daisy as a distraction, and then Daisy is the younger sister of a gang lord named Julian, and we also get Julian's point of view in this book. Yeah, I read the first book last year. I liked it. I thought it was entertaining. Honestly, that's what these books are entertainment. The crazy things that these people do. And it's even crazier because they're rich. I know that sounds so silly to say, but the way they live their life is wild to me. But yeah, I would like to get to this book this year and maybe even get to the other books in the series. I think there's 5 out right now. Next, I have Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. This book explores the friendship between Kate and Tully. I should have looked that up to see how to pronounce it. From 8th grade to adulthood, through all the ups and downs of life. And apparently this is the first book in a duology. I didn't know that. My mom loved this TV show, and so she bought me the book so I could read it. And I hadn't read Kristen Hanna before until I read The Women, which came out last year, I think. And oh my goodness, I loved that book. It was a 5-star read. Kristen Hanna's writing was just so amazing. I think I'm gonna read it in the summer because for some reason this feels so summery to me. Next, I have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This is the third book in the Part of Your World series, but I'm almost positive that like you don't need to read that series in order at all. Maybe they're interconnected standalones, which I like to read my interconnected standalones in order, so I will in this case, but I don't think you need to. The first book is Part of Your World, the second book is Yours Truly, and then the third one is Just for the Summer. I have Just for the Summer on here because it was a 2024 release and so many people loved it. This book in specific follows Justin and Emma, who both believe that they are cursed because every person they date goes on to find their soulmate after they break up. So they decide that if they date each other and then break up, they'll break the curse because then they'll go on to find their soulmates. Everyone really liked it. I'm a little hesitant because these two characters meet on Reddit, and I think that is the craziest thing to put into a romance book, okay? Next up on this list, I have Babel by R.F. Kuang. I downloaded this book as an audiobook a long time ago and I just haven't gotten to it. But it follows Robin Swift, who is a Chinese boy who is like orphaned after losing both his parents to cholera and is taken to London and trained in a variety of different languages so that he can get into the Oxford University and train in the university's Institute of Translation, which is also known as Babel. I've heard literally nothing but great things about this. People who went into the book not thinking they're gonna like it read it and loved it. So I have really high hopes. Next, I have this massive book, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. This is a horror book. I have read pretty much no horror. I got this book because my creative writing teacher showed it to me, and it's just really interesting because it just like is formatted so weird. Like, I don't know if you can see that. It's so unique. And when I look up a synopsis, all it says is a young family moves into their new home and quickly realizes that their house is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Sounds pretty horrific. When I looked up reviews of this book, people are talking about how there's like multiple storylines and like a story within a story. I don't know, it's really intimidating. It's been on my bookshelf for a while. I'm just so scared to read this book, but I would really like to at least attempt to do so this year. Next, I have, almost hit myself in the face with that. I have Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. I think it's like a romance, a magical realism romance, a fantasy, a romantasy set in the Regency era in England, and it follows Theodora, who has been cursed by fairies to have no sense of fear or embarrassment, which makes her upcoming London season a breeding ground for potential scandal. Apparently it's the first book in a series. I have heard really, really great things about this first book, and then nothing about any of the other books in the series. This is giving me the vibes of like a magical version of Bridgerton, and honestly, I liked Bridgerton, the TV show. I didn't read the book yet. I have the book. Actually, I gave my mom the book to read. I don't think she read it. I think it'd be really fun. It sounds really fun. Next, I have Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Grams. This book got turned into an Apple TV show, and I heard really good things about the show, honestly, and about the book. It follows Elizabeth Zott, who is a very highly educated chemist. I don't know how she gets put into this like cooking show situation, but she hosts a cooking show, and she basically uses it to teach other women about chemistry, which I think is really cool. I wish I didn't have this cover. There's another cover that's way prettier than this one, but oh well. We're down to the last 3 books, okay? We're almost there. Next, I have Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This is the first book in the Beartown series. I think it's a trilogy. And this whole series follows a town whose greatest hope is the boys' junior hockey team, and they have this opportunity to compete in the national semifinals. Basically, this series is just exploring what drives a community apart and what will ultimately bring it back together. I've heard nothing but great things about not only this series, but Fredrik Backman's writing in general. Next, I have It by Stephen King. I own this book. I don't have it with me. It's in my parents' place. It is an actual brick of a book, and I just can't get it here right now. This book is about a group of teenagers who several years ago stumbled upon an unnamed horror in their small town, and then several years later, after they've grown up and have gotten successful, they are all drawn back to face the nightmare that started all those years ago. I haven't seen the movie. I'm not entirely sure what it's even about. Honestly, like, this explanation doesn't do much in terms of informing what the book is about, but I am determined to read a Stephen King book this year. I read You Like It Darker by Stephen King last year, and I honestly did not like it. It was a collection of short stories. I'm just trying to like branch out into new genres, so I read that because it's a horror book, and I just didn't like it very much, so I'm trying to give Stephen King another try, and I'm gonna do that with It. Finally, we are to the last book of this video, which is the last book on my 2025 TBR, The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood last year, and I did not like it. I was actually really disappointed because I heard so many great things about Ali Hazelwood and her books, but it just wasn't for me, I don't think. But this is an adult romance that follows Olive, who is a PhD candidate who's like trying to prove to her best friend that she's happy even though she spends like all her time at school or whatever. And so she kisses the first guy she sees, who happens to be a professor at her school, and they fake date. Here's the thing. I want to give Ali Hazelwood another shot. This has the fake dating trope. I love the fake dating trope. The fake dating trope almost always guarantees me a good read. So I'm really hoping that by picking a book that has tropes that I really like, I'll really like the book, and maybe I'll actually really like Ali Hazelwood's writing. But yeah, those are the more than 25 books. I honestly don't know how many. A lot of books that I want to read this year. I think I have the opportunity to do so. I already got a couple of these on my February TBR. Let me know what books you have on your 2025 TBR. What books are you absolutely dying to read this year? What new releases do you really want to read this year? And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!